Hey, Algebra 2, Miss Obringer here. I would like to go over dividing polynomials again. Due to all the tech issues during class today, um, I want to make sure we all have common language and the correct answers and the opportunity to ask any clarifying questions when we get to it. So we are in the lesson dividing polynomials using long division. And these are the notes that I handed out in class today. The first page is just an example that's laid out for you so you guys can use it as a reference. Let me show you how to use it as a reference. All right, so some common language that we're going to use when we're talking about division problems. You guys probably know this. The answer to a division problem is called the quotient. All right, so when we get to the answer of any division problem, it's called the quotient. The top number is the dividend, and the bottom is called divisor. Okay, and I've highlighted the dividend in orange and the divisor in green to show us how to kind of set up our division problem when we have a polynomial. So you'll notice lots of highlights on this page. The other term I want us to become familiar with is first term. When we talk about the first term, I'm talking about the first term that appears in any polynomial. Sometimes there's a coefficient, which means a number in front of the variable, and sometimes there's not. This one doesn't have a coefficient. And the first term for the dividend is x to the third, right? And you'll notice I have a blue highlight here, a blue highlight there, a purple highlight for my first term in the dividend, a pink highlight for the first term in the divisor, and a pink highlight for the first term in my dividend. This just helps us to see how the process flows. Over here on the right side, I have questions that as we get really good at processing through this, we might just be able to ask ourselves in our heads. But I've written out our cognitive thinking so that we can reflect on it. And this is how it kind of goes. So from start, you're going to take your dividend and write it under your division symbol. You take your divisor and write it out here. Then we're going to start asking ourselves these questions. X times what number equals x to the third? Right? X times what number equals x to the third? Well, I remember that when I'm multiplying polynomials, I know that I'm just going to add the exponents. So what am I missing? 1 plus what number equals 3? 2. So this number is an x squared. I'm going to write that directly on top of any x squared numbers. I want to stack my like terms. So from there, I take x squared. Now I'm going to multiply this times both terms in my divisor. All right, x squared times x gives me x to the third. X squared times 3 gives me 3x squared. From there, you'll notice I put parentheses around it, and I'm going to subtract that entire quantity. So x to the third minus x to the third is 0. 5x minus 3x squared is 2x squared. I then bring down my 7x, and I go back. I ask myself, what is the first term, x, times what number gives me 2x squared? All right, so x times what number gives me 2x squared? What's missing? Well, I know that there's a 2 missing, and I know that there's an x missing because x to the first times another x would equal that x to the squared. So I'm going to go ahead and write it right above my x terms, and then I'm going to do the same thing. I have to take this term times both numbers in my divisor. So 2x times an x is 2x squared, plus 2x times 3x is 6x, and I'm going to subtract both of those. right? 2x squared minus 2x is 0. 7x minus 6x is 1x. I bring down the 3 and I start this process again. I go back to my first term and I ask myself in my head, x times what number equals x, right? X times what number equals x? Well, the only way to get that would be 1. Then I multiply. I wanted to change colors, but 1 times that term, 1 times this term, right? It's a little messy, but my brain is always making sure I multiply it by both terms. 1 times x is just x, and 1 times 3 is 3. So I subtract that whole quantity. X minus x is 0x, and 3 minus 3 is 3. So we've successfully divided a polynomial. Let's see, let me X out there. Screenshot. Done.